I said this, like anybody who tries to get revenge on a woman,
way.
That's incel energy. That's a wrong way of looking at it. The only revenge you can get on a woman who breaks your heart is success. Success is the best revenge. Just level up slowly, and when she messages you, you got two choices. You can either say, sorry, baby, you're not my type anymore. Boom, you win.
So that's the answer to the question. Put a plan.
Why is Andrew Tate so popular? Whether you see Andrew Tate as a raging misogynist, or you genuinely see him as a role model for young boys and men, odds are you have heard of him and you have formed an opinion on him. The immensely popular podcaster and former kickboxer has built an impressive following and has become the topic of much debate due largely to his incredibly polarizing views that he spews indiscriminately across the internet. And though many have ventured to speculate what it is that was primarily behind Andrew Tate's rise to infamy, few have bothered to ask, why? Why does Andrew Tate hold the misogynistic views that he does? And why do those views make him popular? Are there really that many misogynists running around eager for a leaguer to latch onto? To understand why Andrew Tate's misogynistic rhetoric seems to resonate with such a large audience, we need to explore Andrew Tate's background and the larger movement that spawned his online persona. Emory Andrew Tate III is son of Black American chess international master Emory Tate II and Eileen Ashley, a British woman who worked as a catering assistant. By all accounts, it seems that the elder Tate was abusive and rarely in his kids' lives. Upon Emory's and Eileen's divorce in 1997, Eileen would return to England with the kids. Whether the lack of a stable and caring father figure in his life played a crucial role in shaping Andrew Tate's misogynistic views cannot ever fully be known, but it likely didn't help. Despite a pretty decent kickboxing career, it wasn't until Tate's brief and ill-fated appearance on Big Brother in 2016, wherein he was removed for past homophobic and racist comments, and a resurfaced video that showed him striking a woman with a belt, which they would later claim was a consensual act. It wasn't until that event that he basically rose to some sort of infamy. With that bit of background out of the way, we can discuss Andrew Tate's divisive rhetoric, and more importantly, why it seems to resonate with so many people. Andrew Tate has had a slew of online grifts, including a webcam business where he essentially pimps out his girlfriends as webcam models, the now defunct Hustlers University, which was a multifaceted scam of sorts. He charged people a monthly fee to teach them basic alternate ways to make money, and it was even an affiliate program with it to help drive traffic to his site. And then there's the one that I'm mostly interested in for now, his podcast, Tate Speech. It was via his own podcast, Tate Speech, along with multiple guest appearances on other podcasts, that Andrew Tate gained notoriety as a standout member of the informally named Manosphere. There are many videos breaking down the Manosphere and what it is, but essentially it has become a genre of podcasting, led mostly by, but not exclusively, men that include Fresh and Fit, the late Kevin Samuels, the Daily Wrap-Up crew, and of course, Andrew Tate via Tate Speech. And when it comes to why Tate's misogynistic rhetoric is so well received, I will admit that I have to bait and switch you a bit. Yes, I will be discussing some of Tate's rhetoric specifically, but Andrew Tate is only one man, and the misogynistic rhetoric that he is famous for is extremely common across the red pill, alpha male manosphere realm. While it is easy for many of us to sit on a high horse and finger wag at Andrew Tate for being a garbage misogynist, which to be clear he is, it entirely misses the larger picture. Although it is possible, it is not really realistic to make the claim that every single Andrew Tate follower is or was a budding misogynist looking for a figurehead to attach themselves to, and a community of fellow misogynists to use as a release valve. A more likely explanation is that Andrew Tate, and the manosphere space at large, has tapped into a faction of the young male population that feels largely disaffected and unheard. A lot of young men and boys share the sentiment that men and young boys are being demonized by the feminist movement. The problem is that while they are wrong about that, they also have legitimate reasons to feel that way. Whilst many people put the blame of the so-called gender wars squarely on the shoulders of the manosphere space, they are called gender wars for a reason. In many ways, the growth of the manosphere space was a direct reaction of a growing faction of vocal anti-male sentiment on the internet. While one can argue that a good deal of that anti-male sentiment was nuanced and legitimate criticism of men, quite frankly, some of it just came from man-hating women or bitter women who had a few bad experiences dating men who were determined to spread their vitriol online. Phrases like "men are trash" and "waste his time" grew significantly in popularity online, even amongst women who may not have been necessarily anti-men in any real way. It was largely due to this wave of anti-male sentiment that men started seemingly making podcasts all at once, desperate to reply and feel heard. Because men will always pay attention to what women say, women didn't need to start podcasts. They could largely just shitpost on Twitter. And by listening to any red pill alpha male podcast, it is clear that they are responding mostly to rhetoric they've seen online, rather than any real-life experience they've personally had. Aside from the unfortunate rise in Manosphere and red pill alpha male content, the other side effect of this largely online phenomenon is the conflation of real feminist critique of men and patriarchal systems with just plain old man-hating rhetoric. Ironically, the two accidentally fed into each other. Man-haters who had nothing constructive to add to the discourse were provided cover by a burgeoning online feminist movement, allowing them to shit on men while LARPing as feminists. And genuine feminists, whose nuanced critique of men and toxic masculinity that did not personalize it as men bad, were often lumped in with man-haters by the wary eyes of boys and men who suddenly felt like they were being attacked on all sides for crimes that they did not personally commit. To be clear, this is not an attempt to both sides this issue. Rather, it is an attempt to clarify the root cause of the continuing and ever-widening gender divide. Even when specific topics that are often fodder for endless debate within the manosphere and gender war universe at large, there seems to be a lot of talking past each other. Let's go with the classic 50-50 debate. This can either refer to paying for dates or how bills are split within the context of a relationship. Let's start with first dates. A genuine feminist would likely argue that dates should probably be split 50-50 due to the fact that women should be seeking to break traditional gender norms if they do in fact wish to not be shackled to past societal expectations of women. Obviously, I am not saying all feminists believe this. It is just the take that I see most commonly from feminists, and is also the take that is most congruent with the ideology of feminism as a whole. Ironically, both women who bash men and misogynists alike would disagree with the feminists on this issue, and for entirely different reasons. The men bashers would proclaim that women are the prize in dating and should be treated as such. Misogynists, on the other hand, while not always true, they are largely okay with assuming traditional roles of masculinity, which would include paying for dates. So even if they got to the same destination, taking different routes, why is there so much disharmony between these two groups? Well, like I mentioned before, they are largely talking past each other. The misogynists, though okay with paying for dates and being traditionally masculine, do expect a level of subservience in exchange for the imagined value that they feel they are bringing. The man bashers, on the other hand, do want it all. Feeling that men are trash, they essentially want the benefits of having a man that will financially spoil them without the shackles of being in a traditional relationship. Meanwhile, regular non-misogynistic dudes are correctly pointing out that if women want to topple patriarchy, they have to reject the parts of patriarchy that both harm and benefit them. So no, paying for a date does not entitle a guy to a woman's body, obviously. But also, maybe the expectation should not always be for men to pay for dates. This is the core of the issue and why it is such a difficult conversation to have. Because for a guy to even mention this will invite cries of brokey and dusty from women and even other men. And this is what leads certain disaffected men into the manosphere and red pill space. For some, not all, they may have felt like they were trying to have productive conversations about gender roles, only to constantly be told that their only worth is in what they can do for women financially. This is why the "what do you bring to the table" discourse is so prevalent in the manosphere. It is men rejecting the idea that their only value is their wallet. The problem is that by the time they have gotten to the point that they are watching manosphere content, they either do not realize or do not care that they are consuming hateful content that is swinging too far in the other direction, and thus the vicious cycle begins. Some women become angry men bashers in response to living under patriarchal conditions. Some men, in turn, try to point out that simply retorting "men bad" is not an adequate solution. Feeling unheard and ridiculed, they turn to manosphere content, where many of them will slowly become full-fledged, women-hating misogynists over time, in turn perpetuating patriarchy itself. Wash, rinse, repeat. Each side becomes deeper entrenched over time, and becomes an ever-increasing vocal minority. Men bashers and misogynists alike, however, both need to touch grass. The one thing that I only briefly alluded to earlier is that much of this discourse is happening entirely online. All of the heated gender war discussions that seem to be such a big part of societal discourse is simply not happening in the real world. In the real world, there are lots of women who do not view men as simply their wallets, and would also happily split a first date. There are also lots of men who understand that we live in a patriarchal society, and even understand their role in patriarchy, and do their best to stand with women in toppling patriarchy. In the real world, men and women are not at each other's throats in the same way that social media, Twitter in particular, would have you believe. And though vilifying everyone who listens to Andrew Tate, Fresh and Fit, or other manosphere content may feel justified, ask yourself if you're actually trying to be a part of the solution or satisfy your self-righteousness. Though going down the path of misogyny onto itself is not a justifiable one, some of the ignored feelings that led to them being disaffected are legitimate. We can acknowledge that disaffected men have legitimate gripes and address those while dismissing their misogyny out of hand. In much the same way that we are told to believe women, sometimes we need to believe men, especially the ones that are not too far gone. Too often, I will see men complain about feeling like they're being used for free drinks, only to be laughed at for being too broke to be worthy of being used for money. In reality, there are women who will chronically date guys they have no interest in just so they can run up the bill and ghost them later. That is using someone, regardless of their income level. Believing men in a situation like that can be as simple as acknowledging that things like that do happen, admit it is wrong, and simply advise him to vet his dates more closely, or plan activity dates or cheaper dates. It can also be pointed out that a past unpleasant experience with a woman does not grant one license to be disrespectful towards women or disrespect their boundaries in any way. Until these types of productive conversations start taking place, the manosphere problem will really only get worse. Our vitriol should be rightfully placed at the feet of many of the manosphere leaders who are willfully manipulating the feelings of their audience for their personal gain. This is, of course, not to infantilize grown men and remove them of all agency whenever their feelings get hurt. But just like we can empathize with a woman who declares that men are trash because of certain lived experiences, it is not productive to finger wag and dismiss the lived experiences of men either. Furthermore, whilst it is certainly understandable why some women post stuff like "men are trash" and deflect criticism by indicating real men or the good ones would not be offended by that statement, perhaps it is time to admit that it isn't the most productive tactic moving forward. And if you're a man that criticizes misogynists and misogynistic behavior, it may be more productive to do so coming from a place of empathy rather than judgment, without condoning their words and/or actions. Defeating misogyny and patriarchy is not a woman's problem. It is a people's problem. And as a society, we have to decide if we're serious about addressing this stuff head on, or smugly calling it out on the sidelines, comfortable in knowledge that we have the moral high ground. This isn't meant to be some milquetoast, when they go low, we go high call for action, calling for everyone to treat misogynists with kid gloves either. Left unchecked, a lot of these chronically online anti-women takes will only continue to propagate and have consequences on real women in the real world. Woke scolding may feel morally justifiable, but it almost always leaves the scoldee feeling further justified in their position. Of course, you may feel it isn't your job to reach or teach misogynists, and that would be a fair point. So ask yourself, what are you hoping to accomplish by ridiculing without educating, if that is the case? And if you are a red pill, alpha male misogynist watching this, and you made it this far, good job. I'm sure this wasn't easy for you. Now time to do better. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. Do all the things, like, comment, subscribe. I really want to hear your thoughts. Shout out to FD Signifier, because I almost didn't finish this video because I posted this on Twitter, but basically he did a video that was a little similar to this recently, and I almost felt like not posting my video because he did such a great job, but he encouraged me to finish my video anyway, so shout out to FD for that. And hit me up on Patreon. I actually have 2 videos on Patreon right now, exclusively on there. One about Breonna Taylor and another one about the death penalty. So if you guys want to check that out, go over to patreon.com/progressivewriter. I'm going to start posting exclusive stuff on my Patreon. I can't commit to how often that's going to happen, but I'm trying to have some more serious stuff over there and have a little bit more of the junk food on the YouTube channel, because the algorithm doesn't like when I do serious content apparently. But thanks for watching.